It's Thursday, July 15th, and time for your Barbados Today morning news update. Elections for the National Union of Public Workers have been put on hold for the time being. First, after the High Court on Wednesday night granted embattled President Akani McDowell an injunction against today's elections pending further order. Emmanuel Joseph has been following the developments and files this report.
Following lengthy oral arguments, the court reserved its decision. The parties were then asked to return to court at 8:30 p.m., at which time the presiding judge, Justice Cecil McCarthy, ordered, among other things, procedural orders that the NUPW is restrained from holding its general elections and all associated formalities until further order. Following the submission of further affidavit evidence and written submissions, the court will deliver its decision next week Thursday on the substantive matter of McDowell's suspension. The basic facts of the case are that McDowell was tried in secret, suspended, and some 2 weeks later told of the charges that led to his suspension. Consequently, he was barred from seeking re-election as president of the union and from even participating in the election. All parties to the case will now have to await the outcome of Thursday's decision to see whether McDowell will continue to prevail or if his suspension remains intact, and hence his chances to run again are ruined. McDowell is being represented by Kevin Boyce and Omari Drakes of Clark Gittins Farmer Law Firm, while Larry Smith QC, in association with Jeriah Rock, appear for the union. I'm Emmanuel Joseph for Barbados Today.
Barbados could soon be establishing air links with the Middle East and Africa. That's according to Minister of Tourism and International Transport Elisa Cummins, who also disclosed that her ministry would be working closely with the Ministry of Agriculture to develop a bulk procurement system for the tourism sector. Cummins mentioned the plans on Wednesday as she called on operators in the tourism industry to go further to form linkages with other sectors and look beyond simply increasing visitor numbers and spend.
I have just opened the first round of negotiations with Saudi Arabia, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, on a new memorandum of understanding on tourism sector cooperation, on air services from the Middle East to open up that new market. We are pushing to close talks which have already been opened with Qatar. We have in the ministry, at the macro level, a Middle East push into that market. On top of that, with new KLM airlift, we are going to be pushing for new partnerships with Africa. I commit to going further to bring the business and airlift here. I need you to commit to going further in the accommodation sector to build those relationships with me. In the coming weeks, the ministry will be hosting, in collaboration with our overseas market directors, a series of roundtables in the traditional markets to ensure that you are in those spaces, meeting those partners and building those strong relationships, even beyond the UK. So together, we are going further with both our new and our existing partners.
The Pan American Health Organization has reported a spike in new COVID-19 cases in the Caribbean and other countries within the last week. And its director, Dr. Carissa Etienne, has warned against complacency amid the resurgence in new cases. During PAHO's weekly press conference, Dr. Etienne also made another appeal for public health measures, surveillance, and increased access to vaccines.
In the Caribbean, infections are also going up. Cuba reported the highest number of weekly cases since the start of the pandemic, and cases have tripled in the British Virgin Islands just weeks after reopening to cruise ships. Meanwhile, South America is reporting a mixed picture. Cases rise when complacency sets in. We are all tired, but after experiencing successive peaks of infections in the same locations, we must break the cycle by embracing public health measures early and consistently. When variants of concern circulate, it's even more important that countries step up surveillance, especially while vaccine coverage remains low.
Dr. Etienne also warned that the pandemic was creating serious social and economic impacts.
COVID-19 has not just ravaged our health systems, it has fractured social protection programs and destabilized our economies. A new report released by the Economic Commission on Latin America and the Caribbean last week paints a grim outlook for our region. More than 7 million companies have closed in Latin America and the Caribbean in the wake of the pandemic. More than a third of people in our region are living in poverty, and 1 in 4 worry about where they will get their next meal. Unemployment rates are higher here than any other developing region. The report shows how the pandemic continues to be fueled by inequality. And unfortunately, our region is the most unequal in the world. We urge countries to continue prioritizing health and social safety nets as part of their COVID response, and as they turn their sights to COVID recovery.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To regional developments now, Guyana recorded a grim milestone on Wednesday when the country's COVID-19 death toll surpassed 500. Gordon Mosley of News Source Guyana has more.
As the Ministry of Health reported on the deaths of 4 more persons, taking the death toll to 503. In the past 12 days alone, the country has recorded 27 COVID-19 related deaths. The 4 latest deaths were recorded in regions 1, 3, 6, and 10. In addition to the 4 deaths, the Ministry of Health has also recorded 168 new cases of the virus, with the majority of those new cases being recorded in Region 9, which borders Brazil. The number of cases in Region 9 has been climbing steadily, with more than 400 active cases in the region. Officials of the region have been calling for a full lockdown of the Region 9 communities, as they continue to blame persons crossing the borders and those heading into the region for the ongoing spread and spike in new cases. Guyana continues to see a spike in new COVID-19 cases, with the authorities doing very little to address the increase. In the past 3 months, more than 10,000 new cases were recorded, representing more than twice the number of cases that were recorded in the first year of the pandemic in Guyana. The government recently reissued the same COVID-19 measures that have been in place for several months with no changes. The opposition has been calling on the government to do more to stem the increase in new cases.
And finally, the COVID-19 pandemic has set the world back a decade when it comes to the progress made in childhood immunization. That's according to the head of the World Health Organization's Essential Program on Immunization, Dr. Anne Lindstrom. According to official data published on Wednesday by the WHO and UNICEF, 23 million children missed out on basic vaccines through routine immunization services in 2020. That's 3.7 million more than 2019.
So the COVID-19 pandemic has set us back a decade when it comes to the progress reached by childhood immunization. The coverage rate of diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis has decreased by 3% from 86 to 83%. This means that we are missing out on life-saving immunization for 23 million kids, and 70 million of those have not even been reached by one single vaccine.
The latest data of comprehensive worldwide childhood immunization figures, which is the first official figures to reflect global service disruptions due to COVID-19, show a majority of countries experienced drops in childhood vaccination rates.
What is needed now is for all countries to look at their immunization services, to restore the immunization, to catch up those children that were lost, those that were not reached by immunization during this pandemic year, and catch them up and give them and offer them the vaccines that are needed. We need to communicate with communities when it comes to coming back to the immunization services, understanding the full value of these vaccines. Unless we act now, we are going to have many outbreaks. We're going to have to deal with the consequences of not having reached these children with life-saving immunization. We'll have many children die and being sick from measles, from polio, and from other diseases. So we need to act right now, not just to restore immunization programs to be able to deliver the COVID-19 vaccines, but also for the life-saving childhood immunizations.
That's news. But for the very latest, visit us at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.